Matt Berner, you're taking a look at the late pick 5 sequence at Saratoga on Saturday afternoon. Races 7 through 11, 50-cent base bet. You can play this wager on DRF Bets. I will show you a little bit of a ticket using DRF TicketMaker. I would encourage you to do the same. Head on over to DRFTicketMaker.com. You can be logged into your DRF Bets account, go through, put in your tickets, click bet now. You are good to go. One-stop shop. We're going to go through. It's going to be a very bare bones ticket that I'm showing you here. There are obviously other horses that you can add to it. I just hate the idea of showing a ticket that costs $200 or $300. If that's what you want to do, and who knows, maybe that's what I will do. But for an exercise like this, I think it's silly to put out some giant ticket that many people may not be able to afford. So I'm going to set the max budget at $50. And you can do that right over here, and you can put in whatever you want. $50, $500. You click enter. It asks you if you want to make the changes, whatever the case may be. And the beautiful thing with TicketMaker, it will go through and automatically adjust the weighting of all of your tickets. But for this exercise, we're going to play with $50. We say yes. We'll kick things off with the first leg, race number 7 of this sequence. Schedule post is 4:36. You can see that right here as well. This is a non-winner. There's a one other than. These are New York bred runners. 2 A's for me in here. The 3 Casmania, the 8 Red Zinger. Some backups as B's, Lutsky, and Amundsen. And a deep backup would be the 1 Bozini. For this, I will just specifically talk about the A's, recognizing, again, you can make a case and use many other horses, but it'll be an hour-long video. Casmania is the one that I prefer out of all of these horses. This is a very lightly raced horse for Peter Kazmias. Most recently, I thought the horse actually ran quite well. Buried down on the inside. Looked like he was going to try to follow the pace setter at that point right through. The pace setter looked like he was faltering a little bit. Actually, ultimately rallied on again. But Casmania ended up angling out into the clear and finished with some interest. Highest last out time form U.S. rating in the field with a 100. If you take 20 off that, that puts this one at about an 80 buyer. The Buyer Associates only awarded that one a 69. For what it's worth, the 4th place finisher out of that race was the next out winner with a 76 on grass. I like Casmania quite a bit in there. Red Zinger is a horse I think that makes plenty of sense, specifically because now you're going to get a little bit of a turn back in distance going from the 1-turn mile at Belmont to 6 furlongs here on Saturday afternoon. I understand broke the maiden 2 back over a sloppy sealed track, but still the figures fit for this one. And I just think this is a nice little turn back move. So those are my 2 A's, and then you can see the rest of the B's and C's. Now we move on to the second leg of this sequence, race number 8. This is a turf dash, 5.5 furlongs. These are maidens. And really, I think a horse that most people are going to key in on, and I'm doing the same, is the number 6 Peaceful for Jonathan Thomas. Now this is a horse that debuted down at Monmouth Park just a few weeks back on June the 16th. Really slow out of the gate, spotted the field a number of lengths, going 5.5 furlongs. That's never a good thing. But then came with a serious finish. The only horse in the field making up any kind of ground. 72 buyer is competitive in here. But again, when you compare the difference between the buyer and the Timeform US rating, Timeform US awarded this horse a 110. And again, I like to go back to sort of the 20-point differential. You take 20 off of a 110, that's roughly a 90 buyer speed figure. Now, maybe you got to make a decision which number you believe a little bit more than the other. In this case, perhaps the buyer is more accurate because the 4th place finisher was a next out winner with a 60 buyer. And the 4th place finisher only finished 2 lengths behind Peaceful. So maybe it seems a little bit more along the lines that the buyer number is accurate. But on the off chance that Timeform US rating is accurate, and again, just from a visual standpoint, I like the way that Peace rallied down on the inside and eventually angled out and came with a big bid. Peaceful is going to be the only A for me in this spot. A couple of backups, Tan and Tight for Chad, making the first start on the turf. And then Prosperity. Grand Motion with the first-time starters, they usually need one, but this one's got a big pedigree. Perhaps is going to need to stretch out in distance before we see his best, or her best, excuse me. But Prosperity would be a deep backup for me in that leg. Then we get on to the Grade 1 Diana. It's a short field. It's the Chad Brown show. No surprise there. He has 4 of the 6 entrants in here. And again, I can't stress this enough. In a perfect world, or if you're playing with a larger budget, obviously you want to be using a horse like Rushing Fall. Heck, if I would be, depending on how this thing ends up going, there's a real chance that I have 5 horses in this race. The only one I won't use is Tace. I don't know that all 5 of them will be A's. More likely than not, Rushing Fall, Sister Charlie, and Omarique, they'll be the A's. Secret Message for me would probably be a B, and Mitchell Road would be a C. But neither here nor there. For this exercise here, I'm only going to use Sister Charlie and Omarique. I feel like the presence of Tace, who is owned by the same owner, Peter Brandt, as Sister Charlie, as Omarique, Taste with the blinkers on, I assume, is going to make life miserable, or try to anyway, early on for Rushing Fall, who is the only Chad that's not owned by Peter Brandt. If that's the case, perhaps it sets up for Sister Charlie and Omarique to come with their late bids. Just for what it's worth, I really like the effort from Secret Message in their most recent start up at Woodbine. The problem is, again, you got to deal with a number of Chads, not one, not two, but three top-level grade 1 runners. And Secret Message does need to improve her game a little bit. And Mitchell Road, look, she's Country House's little sister, or older sister, I should say, but she's really in raging form for Bill Mott. Again, you could go a number of ways for this exercise. I'll only use these two A's. We move on to the fourth leg of the sequence, race number 10. This is one that I think is another instance where the obvious horses are Payne and Hirsch. They both come out of that race at Belmont Park last month, in which Rowayton came back, and he was visually very impressive. He got the job done. He returned next out, earned a 90 buyer. The fourth place finisher, who finished behind Payne and Hirsch, came back and earned a 91 buyer in his next start. But I just, there's a part of me that is not totally convinced that Payne and Hirsch are slam dunks. Of the two, I do prefer Payne. Hirsch should move forward second start off the bench. I toyed with making the 7 Ruler of the Nile an A. And you know what? Just for ha-has, let's do it. Let's make the 7 Ruler of the Nile an A. You see that changes some of these numbers over here a little bit. Ruler of the Nile, from a number standpoint, a little on the light side, but I do like the ability to sit just off, doesn't have to have the lead. And really, for these new connections, I think this most recent run was quite promising. The fourth place finisher came back and earned an 85 in his next start. I know there's a big class hike here going from the claiming 16 ranks to this group here, the non-winners of 1, other than and stretching out in distance. But a Ruler of the Nile, if you're looking for a little bit of a price, maybe that's the horse. So again, and you can play with this a little bit and see what some of the things change over here. Let's move them up to an A for this one, for this exercise. And we'll get to the last leg, race number 11. Look, there's going to be a Chad in here that a lot of people are going to be pointing toward. I'm not super against prognostication. I just don't know that he has any tremendous edge on this field. And I recognize that Patriot Drive, Sycamore Lane, and Catch a Cab, they all come out of the same race. Why do I not have Sycamore Lane listed? Well, I look at it and say Patriot Drive, I thought it was a promising enough effort. Maybe the race itself was not brilliant. I believe the fourth place finisher came back and earned a 74 in their next start. So, again, maybe we're not talking about any superstars. The real reason for the 12 with Catch a Cab, and that would be the preference for me exiting that $25,000 claimer. Now first start out for Jason Sir. Sarat Ortiz takes them out for Michael Dubb. These are connections that have had tremendous success at Saratoga over the past. I know the horse is 0 for 3 and he hasn't hit the board on the turf at Saratoga, but I would have to give Catch a Cab a good look. And if you're looking for a deeper play, maybe a horse like the Man Behind the Man coming from Monmouth, the time form ratings are competitive compared to some of the buyers. Maybe that one would be a deep backup. So when you go through and you make all your different sort of picks and choices, then you can come right on over here. You set your max budget. The minimum bet is 50 cents, and it shows you all your different tickets. All these different sort of permutations of how you want to look at things. And you can go through and maybe you don't like the idea of A's with 1B or A's with 2Bs. You can do what I do. Sometimes I'll click on all A's and all B's, but I'll also play an all A's ticket. So effectively my A's are emphasized. I'm playing it for $1. Can always bump that up. You have a couple of C's in here. Now this comes at $64. Okay, so now what do we do? If your budget is $50, and you don't want to really stretch too much, then maybe you're kind of forced to go with A's and 1B, A's and 2Bs. That goes down to $54. So now you've got a $4 difference. Maybe that's when you need to go back into your ticket and say, okay, you know what, Ruler of the Nile, if you're not willing to spend the extra $4, which in this instance I would say you'd be driving yourself nuts if you didn't spend it, but just for exercise's sake and showing you all how it works, you move them back to a B, you're looking at $46. I wonder what an all A's, all B's ticket would end up, $50 on the nose. So that's an option that you could go through, and when you're logged into your DRFBets account, there will be the Bet Now option tomorrow afternoon. You can't do it obviously a day in advance, but you click that, it goes right through all these tickets. There's no more manual entry. You can do it all right here in DRF TicketMaker. It's a fun sequence. Look, it's always a fun sequence at Saratoga. Races 7 through 11. It is the late pick 5 50-cent base bet. You can play it on DRFBets. I know that wasn't always the case. It is now. The late pick 5 at Saratoga you can play, and the late pick 5 at Naira you can play on DRFBets, and I would encourage you to play with DRFBets TicketMaker. Scheduled post time for the first leg of this sequence. Race number 7, Saturday afternoon at the Spa, 4:36 Eastern. Good luck.